Under the substitution method, you first of all attempt to make one unknown the subject of the formula of a particular linear equation. Get the videos on linear equation and try to watch those videos to understand linear equations before you watch the videos on substitution on simultaneous equations, and you will understand perfectly what I'm talking about. So you make one of the unknown to be the subject of that linear equation. Now, what does it mean to make an unknown the subject? The subject. The subject. By making an unknown the subject, it's more or less like the reference points, of that equation. What do I mean by that? You are making that unknown to be standing alone, That unknown is now left at one side of the equation. It's the only thing left at that side. When you have two expressions in a linear equation, you now make an unknown to now be standing alone, while the other parties are now standing at the other side of that equation. That is what subject of the formula means. So now, the first thing you do in substitution method or under substitution method, the first thing you do is you first of all make one of the unknown to be the subject of the formula. After you've done that, you now use that as what you're going to substitute in the second equation to find the other unknown. This unknown that you have used as the subject of the formula will now be substituted by what it is equivalent to in the second equation. I repeat, this unknown you've made the subject of the formula from your first equation is what you will now use. What it's equivalent to is what you use. It's what you pick to replace that unknown in the second equation. So if you say x is equal to 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 will now be appearing in the second equation as x. That is what substitution means. In a football match, you have 11 players that starts a game for a team in a football match. Yeah? Good. Now, then we get to a time in that game where the coach will need to replace tired legs. What I mean by tired legs, there are some players that will now be tired as a result of how they have actually engaged themselves, all right, on the field of play throughout the minutes they've spent or played. And they will give the coach signal, or the coach will have to check to see that they need to be what? Changed. Now, to change them, there is a term that is used or utilized in football. It's called substitution. So they call that time whereby another player will go into the pitch to replace another player. That process is known as what? Substitution time. And so the person that now replaces that other player that is coming out is the substitute. So there are some players that will be left on the bench. So those players will now replace the player that is supposed to be substituted. So as that other player is going in, that player that is going in is now the substitute. The player that is coming out is the player that is being substituted. Okay, so that term substitutes comes to play. That term substitution comes to play. All right, so that's what we're doing here. So we are now replacing x by that 1 plus 2. You now replace it in the second equation. And when you now replace it, x will not appear in the second equation anymore because you've now replaced it by something else. The player that was tired, that was replaced, and that was removed from the field is no longer going to take part in that game. He's not going to play a part in that game. He's not going to play any part again in that game. Rather, another player will now take his place on the field of play and play and play. So now 1 plus 2 will now replace x in the second equation to find the order unknown. To find the order unknown. Simple. And then, after you have now found that unknown, you now go back and look for x. Simple.